Who does everyone owe, brother? Now hold tight because we have a piece of information that everyone knows, but it's quite crazy. Everyone in the world is in debt. America is at the top of the debt conversation with $38 trillion. Europe, Japan, and even Saudi Arabia are indebted. Okay, but if all of us owe someone, who is the creditor of all this money? Who holds the till? Welcome to the unseen price. Here, we talk about the intriguing places where money, power, and history collide. And believe me, it's not as simple as it looks from the outside. Look, being in debt is not just a burden. It's actually like an invisible scaffold that keeps the modern world standing. Almost everything around us, wars, crises, exploding economic bubbles, is built upon these IOU papers. And when you go to the very end of that creditor chain, you see something interesting. The world owes itself, not any external planet or entity. But of course, this doesn't mean the money is distributed equally to everyone. So, how do we get to this point? We are in debt equivalent to almost 3 times the size of the global economy. The story begins long before the first credit card was even invented, way back in the 1600s in England. When the king ran out of money fighting France, he went to a clever group of merchants and said, "Give me money now, and I will pay you continuous interest for my future taxes." No one realized it at the time, but this was a revolution. Suddenly, the state discovered the power to spend money it didn't possess. In return, those merchants received a highly reliable piece of paper that could be bought and sold, the government bond. The seed of the modern financial system was sown with this small piece of paper. Then the whole world copied these papers. Being in debt stopped being a shame, as it is for some of us, and became a symbol of trust. The amount of debt that could be taken became an indicator of power and trust. While old empires fought for gold and precious metals, modern ones print bonds for interest. Now, let's fast forward 300 years. Debt is the world's #1 export. Global debt increases by approximately $1 trillion every 100 days you breathe. Everyone is indebted. Everyone is lending. So, who holds the end of this chain? Let's look at the example of America, because their debt concerns all of us. Half of their colossal $38 trillion debt belongs to investors. 2/3 of those investors are American banks, the Federal Reserve, and pension funds. In other words, America's largest debt is owed to Americans themselves. Japan and China are creditors, but they hold only about 2 to 3% of the total debt. Everyone says the U.S. owes China, and they are right. But the real owner of the debt is the Americans' own retirement accounts. The government prints bonds, and you're my retirement funds by them. We pay taxes to the government. That tax pays the bond's interest, and that interest flows back into our retirement accounts. This is like a mirror game. The debt is real, but the creditor is a reflection of the system itself. Of course, this situation is not unique to America. It's global. Everyone owes everyone else. Japan owes the U.S. The U.S. owes Europe. Europe owes other developing countries. Everyone holds someone else's note. It's like a poker table where everyone stays in their seat based on promises. But the most powerful player at this table is on the 4th layer, the markets. They are the invisible leaders who decide whether a country's borrowing interest rate will be high or low. The markets decide who stays at the table and who gets up. And, of course, the modern oracle at the top of this system, the central bank. Don't think that central banks only manage debt. They also produce it. When they buy bonds, a new currency is born in return. So behind all the money in the market, all the digitized liras, lie promises and debts given to someone. There is no such thing as money without debt in return. This cycle continues as long as investors believe that governments can pay the interest. But what happens if investors lose this faith in governments? We have seen this. In 2010, Greece became unable to pay its debts. The price was an austerity policy. Taxes increased, spending was cut, and unemployment rose. In Argentina, debt means a national curse. In Sri Lanka, it's collapse itself. If the system breaks down, the creditors suddenly appear, the IMF credit rating agencies. Those unnamed bondholders who grab whole nations by the throat. And what happens next? History repeats itself. New debts are issued in place of the old ones. Because in the 21st century, debt was not designed to be repaid, but to be rolled over continuously. Governments' plans never included paying off their debt. Don't think of this as a conspiracy. It's a political reality. Governments view debt as a monthly subscription fee, issuing new bonds to pay off the old ones. Interest essentially becomes rent paid to maintain the order. The U.S. will never pay back the $38 trillion. Japan has been rolling theirs over for years. Why? Because for the people who invest, the government is the most reliable institution in the world. Debt is not seen as a burden, but as an asset that forms the foundation of the markets. For example, what if Washington paid off its debt to the last penny? Banks worldwide would lose their most trusted asset, the economy would stop, and a collapse would occur. Paying off the debt means the end of the economy. That's why when politicians say the budget will be balanced, they are selling an illusion. The goal is not to pay off the debt. The goal is to keep the system sustainable enough so that it doesn't lose faith. The real mystery is this. When we say the debt belongs to all of us, only half of that is true. Interest payments are not distributed equally. The taxes paid flow to the institutions that hold those debts. So, the debt is not a transfer between countries. It is a transfer of wealth between classes. The financial system has turned debt into money. The line between debtor and creditor has blurred. Debt was once a conviction. Today it means balance. But if that balance is disturbed, then we can all see what debt truly is. And that some promises must be kept forever. If I have helped you gain a new perspective, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and keep notifications on for new content. There is always an answer in history. I am here for you to hear the right answer from your friend. See you again.